Premier. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford this afternoon had this message for Prime Minister Carney ahead of that big meeting.
You know, I just mentioned to him, don't get bullied, because we know where he's going, and stand firm. We're their #1 customer, and yes, they're our #1 customer, but just be strong, and we have your back.
Ford last met with Trump's Commerce Secretary back in March. He was alongside then Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc. The pair left that meeting pledging behind the scenes work between officials on both sides would continue. Leading those talks is David Paterson. He's Ontario's representative in Washington. Hi, Mr. Paterson. Pleasure to welcome you back to our program. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks, Vashi. My pleasure.
So you've been one of the people in the midst of this federal election who has continued to be in close contact with officials on the U.S. side. And I wondered what your overall read of the state of things at the moment ahead of this visit is. Like, what is the state of the relationship and the trading relationship between our two countries at this moment?
Well, it's a good question. I think that as our new Prime Minister makes his way here today and has an important meeting tomorrow, 2 or 3 things have really changed over the last 2 months. And I think those are things that his team will be briefing him on quite a bit. And I think number one is that the rest of the world has caught up with us here. When this started months ago, it was just Canada and fentanyl tariffs and Mexico. And now there's 100 countries around the world that are here in Washington and very, very worried about the tariffs that were initially imposed on them on April 2nd, many of them, you know, above 50%. And then they were brought down more around the area of 10%, except for China. And the second thing is that because of all of that, the Trump administration has really wanted to try and do some things to calm the market, the bond market, the stock market. And we saw some of that with the auto sector last week as well. And that's something we've been working very hard over the months here as Ontario with the industry here in Washington. And we saw some positive things in terms of no tariffs on our parts, for example, which is something we've been working on very hard and really making the case that it's in the United States' self-interest to do that. And so that's positive. But really, China is the focus now. And while the other countries around the world have seen their tariffs go down to 10% and ours in Canada are 0, China is well over 100%. And so everything comes in that context now. And I think the Prime Minister will want to be ready in that context.
Can I ask you to expand on that? Do you mean that the president and his team are viewing, I guess, trade with other countries against the backdrop of the tensions more specifically with China? And what are the implications for Canada on that front? Like, what do you think he's looking for from us on that?
Well, I think you have to read the overall context when you're coming in. Of course, the focus is on Canada. We want to see our tariffs go to 0 and all of that. But of course, the Prime Minister's also been very clear that we have work to do at home, and we're making important trade and interprovincial trade province-wide and country-wide in Canada as well. And so I think he can come down here with some good confidence that, you know, we have an economic plan that is our own in Canada. We see all the world engaged in all of these things, but Canada in that context looks much more like your ally. And in particular, when China is the focus, we have what the Americans need. And despite all the rhetoric, they know that. I see that day to day when I'm dealing with people in the administration. And now, for example, is a great time for a discussion around critical minerals, because as China cuts off critical minerals that are essential for military and for automotive and robotics, we have all those in Canada. And so a great context for the Prime Minister is to say, look, we have a defense agreement. We still have NORAD. We have these things. If you want to do these things with us, we have an awful lot to offer you. So I think he can have confidence in that regard.
And what is your sense after having, you kind of indicated there that some of the facts appear to be resonating, at least that's how I interpreted it, and the fact that we've seen, you know, USMCA compliant goods get almost an exemption, I guess you could say, and in particular, most recently, as you pointed out with the auto parts, like, is your feeling that there is some reason, at least, I don't want to say a lot of reason, but some reason to be optimistic that the facts are actually resonating with people around Trump?
Yes, I think so. I mean, we've been working very hard since Premier Ford came down and met with Secretary Lutnick and with Ambassador Greer. I've been working with their chiefs of staff for the last 2 months on that, and we've seen progress in a variety of ways. And if you think back to where we were when we started, we have USMCA compliance as a way for our companies to be able to trade without those fentanyl tariffs. We have duty-free passage on our auto parts now. We have half a tariff, if you will, on our automobiles, but the rest of the world has a 25% tariff. And we also have a 0% base tariff. And so we've been making brick by brick, we're taking down these walls, but there's more work to do. And of course, it's a very volatile president and a very volatile situation. So nobody should be doing any victory laps, but we're in a relative competitive advantage to most other countries in the world. And I think it's a great time to sort of step back, say, I'm in no rush. We have lots of things to offer to the United States. Let's talk about those things. And I hope that's sort of the context for tomorrow.
You, of course, represent the provincial government in D.C., and we have seen, and we did see prior to the election, a lot of presence from premiers. We know that there was sort of this like vacuum at the federal level because, of course, the federal government was sort of imploding, and then there came a leadership election, and then there came an actual federal election. I'm wondering from where you sit if you think it is going to be easier, essentially on the ground in Washington, now that there is somebody, speaking for the federal government in an official capacity in the Prime Minister.
Well, I know all the provinces really welcome tomorrow, and seeing the federal government back fully in the game in terms of managing our trade relationship, because as you say, it's been impossible for the federal government to do that in a full way over the last 2 months. The premiers have stood up since the Council of Federation. Premier Ford sort of leading the way, being down here several times, and that has helped build relationships. We have a lot of chatter in Canada about trade, but being here makes a difference. You don't hear a lot about Canada or people speaking in Canada when you're here in Washington, but being here and building those relationships, being able to get your messages returned and the like from chiefs of staff, of the cabinet secretaries, we're in that spot now, and we've been bringing our federal colleagues to those meetings, and now hopefully they'll do the same, and together we will get ourselves into a better spot.
Just one final question for you, Mr. Paterson. You know Washington inside and out. You know how unpredictable everything has been. Are you nervous at all that things could go awry tomorrow?
No, I'm not really nervous. I mean, I think that we are in a permanent change for trade in the world. And I think we're not going back to a nostalgic day of yesterday. So it's really wise for us to make our own future and do it both at home, as we're doing with removing trade barriers and getting projects moving, building pipelines. These are all really good things to do to control our own future. But you can't turn your back on a partner like the United States. We love Americans. We do 80% or more of our trade with them. They're going through some different approaches, but actually what does work is to point out that we're not just your best ally, but we're your best ally in your own self-interest, and that's making a difference.
Okay, Mr. Paterson, I'm going to leave it on that note. I really appreciate you making the time for the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Vashi.